Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Roush will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome to the Sales Maven podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Roush. I am so thrilled to get to spend this time with you. Today is a solo episode. It's just you and me here together. And I want to talk about something that has been coming up a lot lately. And it's all about overcoming the imposter syndrome in the selling process. So I don't know if you relate to this, if you've ever felt like an imposter at some point, but I want to talk about this today and share some ideas and some stories and see what resonates for you. Before I do that, I do want to thank those of you who have rated and reviewed the podcast. Thank you so much for doing that. It means the world to me. If you haven't yet and you like the podcast, would you please leave us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform? I would be so grateful. All right, so here's why this topic came up is a couple weeks ago, I was asked to be a part of a challenge. So a coach in a challenge, there are 6 coaches of us. It was a 7-day challenge. And I was to go live and talk about some of the common beliefs around sales in this challenge. And there were, I think there were 1,400 people who signed up to be a part of this challenge. So I went live and I was talking about some common beliefs. And one of the common beliefs that I shared was that people think that sales comes easy to some and not to others. Have you ever had this belief? Do you, or maybe you still do you believe that sales comes easy to some and not to others? And if so, this may be leading you down this path to feeling like an imposter in your selling process if you don't think sales comes easy to you. But in fact, it's so not true. Now, I was sharing my story, and I'll share a little bit about what I shared in the actual challenge. But one of the things that we asked participants to do is we asked for them to shoot a video and share, which of the common beliefs that I had shared resonated with them and how it's held them back in some way in their business and what they were ready to let go of to do better. And as I was watching these videos that people were posting, and some of them were, a minute long or, maybe a couple minutes long. And I was going back and I was watching some of these videos that these really brave souls, I will say, I feel like what a brave soul that would go and post a video in this challenge, 1,400 people, probably, the majority of them, they don't know at all, and post this video and share something that felt very vulnerable. And as I was watching it, the one that kept coming up over and over again of the different things that I had shared in the challenge was that people truly believed that sales comes easy to some and not to others. And it really got me thinking, and I shared this actually in the challenge itself, but it got me thinking about when I started my sales career. My first professional sales job, when I was really a sales professional, that's what it was said on my business card. I think I was first sales executive or sales representative. I can't remember what my first business card said, but it was like I was official, right? And I was working for a technology company, and I was in this very male-dominated industry. And as a matter of fact, I spent most of my sales career in this same technology, male-dominated industry. Most of the people that were on the sales teams with me were men. And they had that aggressive male persona that let's go out and hunt the big game, and they were doing really well. A lot of them were making a lot of money. And, here was this really young girl, I was in my early 20s, who grew up in Boise, Idaho, who grew up, frankly, a lot of people who know me from back then would say we were white trash, very poor family, and, not used to making a lot of money and working around these guys that were making, at the time, a lot of them were in the six figures, like that was their take home, which was so outside of my thought process. I remember actually when I was 15, I was sitting with my grandma, who I was very, very close with. And I was sharing with her that my goal that was by the time I turned 30, that I would make $70,000 a year. And I felt like if I could make $70,000 a year by the time that I was 30, that I would have like accomplished all of my dreams. Like that would be, and it felt like at 15 and growing up in the environment that I grew up in, it's not like we went, it's not like I went hungry per se, but we definitely didn't have extras. It wasn't an extravagant lifestyle, and we definitely weren't middle class. So telling my grandma this and just feeling like that was the thing, and it felt like such a pie in the sky goal. Now, I did end up, blowing past that goal by the time I was 30, which felt again like this huge accomplishment. But here I am in the sales environment working around all these really aggressive guys and realizing that style of selling was so foreign to me, and thinking like, oh my gosh, they're so good at it. It comes so easy. They say things that would never, ever come out of my mouth to clients, and people respond to it. And I was really intimidated. Now, I found a way to kind of work around it a little bit. But when I went from the tech company that I was working with, and I got my first job at the manufacturer level, and this is when I was working for Hitachi America. And Hitachi is one of the largest, at the time, one of the largest companies in the world. And I was taking over a territory for who they ended up promoting the guy who had the territory that I got hired to take over. They ended up promoting him to sales manager. So he became my sales manager, which was also super intimidating because he had built this really successful territory. And he was like a guy's guy, a total like dude bro. Everything about him was super dude bro. And the clients loved him. He partied with them. He did really like guy stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And I really did for the first little bit, I tried so hard to fit in. I tried to, drink like he drank. I tried to like entertain the clients the way he entertained the clients. And I have some really crazy stories from those times. And it worked in some ways, but it didn't really feel authentic. And that was actually when I first started studying neurolinguistic programming. And I started realizing like what were some of my strengths. And one of my strengths was really building strong relationships. And I found that instead of always taking clients out to the bars, that not all the clients wanted to go out to the bars and, and party and do shots all night. Some of them just wanted to have a really nice dinner, and they liked when I invited their wives to come with us. And I built relationships with their wives and with the salespeople who were selling my product. And they became some of my best like clients. And they loved that it didn't always have to be this like party atmosphere, because it was about building relationships. And when I really started to embrace my style of selling, this relationship building, then my sales really skyrocketed. And I did really, really well in the industry. And when I started Sales Maven, again, I found myself kind of looking around the landscape of people in the entrepreneurial world and people who were teaching sales, and they had these really aggressive approaches to sales. And I knew like that wasn't me. And I think I have shared this story a couple times, and I know I shared it when I had Natalie Ekdahl on the podcast a few months ago, and we were talking about niching down, and Natalie was sharing kind of her strategy behind it. If you haven't listened to that episode, it's so good. But I had shared with her there that at one point I kind of got disillusioned because I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be like all these other people in the industry that are, in the entrepreneurial world that are doing really, really well, because they were a lot of like, look at me, I'm this huge personality. When I'm on stage, it's all about me. We're going to show a million pictures of me. I'm going to show you how great my life is. I'm going to show you all the trips that I go on. I'm going to, show you all the money that I spend on things. And I was like, that made me gag, frankly. I just have never been drawn to that. And I thought about quitting. I thought about leaving Sales Maven behind and going and getting a job because I was like, I can't do this. And it wasn't really until I found Natalie and saw her on stage and I realized, oh, here's a real person up on stage, being herself, rocking it because she's amazing, and making it about the audience, making it about the clients in the room. And it felt really special. And I haven't experienced that with a lot of people. I have a few, people that I've in the entrepreneur world that I've seen and that I'm really drawn to that feel very customer focused, client focused, love on their clients, don't need to make the whole world about them and what a big deal they are. And it was like, oh, so inspiring. And so when I look at this and when I think about this idea of people thinking or believing that sales comes easy to some and not to others, I want to encourage you to look around your landscape and recognize that nobody is you. And I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, but there is something about you that will draw people to you. There's something about your personality, and there's something about the way that you sell that will draw people in. Now, if you have a really aggressive personality and you're really outgoing and you're all these things, there's nothing wrong with that. You're still perfect. You're perfect the way you are, and that's going to draw people to you. But if there's some part of you that's like, oh, I feel kind of shy, or I feel like I don't want to be on camera, or there is a way to put yourself out there and draw people in. I actually specifically picked doing a podcast. I was originally, before I launched the podcast, I was thinking about doing like a video, like a vlog kind of thing on YouTube and launching like a YouTube channel and making it this thing. And somebody that I was talking to had shared with me and kind of encouraged me to really think about what did I want. And the thing I didn't want is I didn't want to be on camera because I actually don't enjoy being on camera. And so I was like, okay, well then that cements it for me that the podcast is going to be my platform to get my voice out into the world and share the things that work for me. And it allows for me to not have to look at myself on camera and just be able to show up and be me. And I have so many examples over the years of clients that I have worked with where we they'll start off with this like, I don't think I can be good at sales, Nikki, because this about me or that about me. And it makes me think of a client that I had who, it was actually when I started doing some coaching and I was starting to coach online. So I was doing virtual coaching sessions. And I don't even remember what platform I was using, but I don't think Zoom was even around then. But I was using a different platform. And I remember having a client somewhere on the East Coast. And one of the things that she had shared was she's really awkward and she did not want to be on camera for her coaching calls. She wanted me to be on camera. She wanted to see me, but she didn't feel comfortable being on camera. And that was kind of one of the things, like she was like, I don't think I can grow my business. And I don't think I can be good at sales because I'm really awkward. And one of the ways that she grew her business was she did a lot of live events where she would have like a booth and people would be coming to these events and walking by. And so we worked on strategy of her word for herself was awkward. She's like, I'm very awkward. And when I get into conversation with people, I'm really awkward. And I was like, great. Let's figure out how to make that part of you that is so much about who you are. Now, I wouldn't describe her as awkward. I thought she was very charming, actually. And I think sometimes people who are awkward, who embrace that, do come across very charming. So it's like, how can we find the thing about her that makes her special and then give her some strategy to be successful at sales? And this is why I teach the 5-step process to the selling conversation to help people know where are you in the process, which step are you on, and how do you seamlessly move people to the next step. And the reason I teach this structure, this framework, and I'm so committed to it is because it does allow for anybody in any kind of personality to show up and be themselves and be strategic. Hey, I just wanted to pop in really quickly and let you know that I'm having a sale for Memorial Day. And it's a special offer for my Emails That Convert course. This is probably one of my most popular trainings of all the trainings that I teach. And it's on sale right now. It's normally $197, but you can get it through the end of May for only $37. Now, in this course, it's broken into 9 small trainings, super easy for you to get through. You're going to learn effective subject lines, phrases that are actually repelling people unintentionally when you're sending emails to them, phrases that actually encourage them to engage with you. I'm going to share my number 1 tip on how to move people from email to a live conversation. And there's so much more in here. It's one of those things that once you learn this, you can't not write better emails. And it's going to help you have more effective sales conversations as a result. So you can get it. This is for the podcast listening audience. You can get this right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/ETC for emails that convert 37. So yoursalesmaven.com/ETC 37. That's the number 37 for only $37. Go grab that now. It is definitely worth every single penny you invest in this. And you'll have 30 days of access to the course, so plenty of time for you to get through it. Okay, back to the podcast. And I've seen it over and over again. And as a matter of fact, in the industry that I was in the technology space, my role, especially at the manufacturer level, was to go out and support our dealers and the dealer reps in the field. So I would go out and, do ride-alongs with these guys and do demonstrations for them to their customers. And when I think back, I can think of I always have 5 people in mind that were the absolute best sales people that I worked with. They were so very good at what they did. And I think I might have even shared this before, but I always say, if I put all 5 of those people at dinner together, they would have very little in common. If you saw them and I explained who they were and what their personalities were, they were all very different personalities. One guy that I worked with was huge personality. If he's in the room, everybody's kind of focused on him. He's talking, and he's a great, great guy. He's a great sales guy. And then I think of another sales guy that I worked with over the years, and he is maybe shy would be the word that I would explain. He's very quiet. He's very reserved, and he is one of those people that when you spend time with him, you just think, this is my own impression. I don't know if you would like this description, but he's almost he feels special. He feels like he was touched, there's something really special about him because he cares so deeply for people, and he does really great work in the world outside of his sales job. He's actually now moved on, and he's running this amazing company, and he's uber successful. But at the time when he was in sales, he also had this component of his life that he didn't talk about very often. He was very private about, that he provided housing for people that needed some help, getting their feet under them. So he had certain housing that was available for people to rent that were kind of getting back, people who were transitioning from homeless. So anyways, he was touched, he had this special thing about him, right? And then I think about another guy who was so incredible at sales. This guy was he was so efficient. He was the kind of guy that if he said he was going to do something, you always knew he was going to do it. And I love him so much. It's funny because I'm still friends with most of these people today and keep in touch with them in some capacity. The one that I'm thinking about right now, I was actually the maid of honor at his wedding in Washington when they legalized gay marriage. He flew from California, him and his partner, and asked me to be a part of their wedding. And he just had this, people used to say that he looked like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden the name has, it'll come to me, Robin Williams. When I would go out to lunch with him or anywhere, people would come over and they'd be like, you look just like Robin Williams. But he didn't have like that big personality. But he was really he was soft-spoken, but kind of flamboyant and kind of, funny, very different from these other two guys. So this idea, when I look at, and I'm not going to go into all the other people, and I can give female examples too. As a matter of fact, I will give one. I think about this woman that I had the pleasure of working with who was really, really good at what she did. And she was kind of, she wasn't soft and warm and fuzzy by any stretch of the imagination. She was really good at what she did. She wasn't rude or mean or anything like that. She just didn't have, she kind of had some sharp edges about her. But man, she was so sharp when it came to negotiations. And she was a rock star. And you couldn't help but kind of be in awe of what she had accomplished and what she had built in her territory. So very different personalities. These are not people that would like hang out together, all different and all very successful at sales. So again, if you are feeling in any way like, I don't know if I can do this sales thing, I don't know if I can reach this next level, if I can really scale my business up, because I don't think I have the right personality for it. I want to say to you, it isn't about having a certain type of personality. It's really about embracing who you are, what makes you you, and then being strategic so that you are, having some type of a process for sales. So whether you use my 5-step process to the sales conversation, the selling staircase, or you have your own process or something else that works for you, but getting through the conversation is really the key. And being you, because you're perfect the way you are. You're not an imposter. And as a matter of fact, I was listening to a podcast. I love Brainy Brown. I don't know if you do, but I love her. And I love her podcast, Unlocking Us. And a couple weeks ago, she aired, it was a 2-part series, and it was in part 2. This series was with Susan Cain, and I think it was called How Sorrow and Longing Make Us Whole. And she was talking about bittersweet. It's such a great, the 2-part episode. I really love it. But in part 2, they were sharing this term, effortless perfectionism. Have you heard that term before? I hadn't heard it. And I went and did a little bit of research around it because I was so interested in this effortless perfectionism. Now, this term was coined by Duke University. That was a study by the Women's Initiative in 2003. And it's really about college age. I think it's really like people that are in college. That's what the study was about. And let's see, I actually wrote a little note here. It said, the concept of effortless perfectionism has spread, giving a name to the constant pressure felt by college women to be smart, accomplished, fit, beautiful, and popular. And it's this never let them see you sweat myth. And if you're showing up in your business with this idea of like, you have to be perfect, and if you show any vulnerability, if you show any parts of your personality that you don't think makes for a good salesperson, that somehow that makes you wrong in some way, that makes you an imposter in some way. And I just want to say that's just not true, and it's not serving you. And if I could coin my own term here, I would say, effortless sales perfectionism is this idea that you believe that in order to be successful in sales, that you have to have a certain personality type, and that personality type needs to be outgoing, charismatic. You got to be smarter than the prospect. You have to know more. You have to have accomplished more. And so you're putting on this air and putting out this content into the marketplace like you've done things that you haven't done, or you've sold to places that you haven't sold to, or you've earned business you haven't earned, or you've bought a super expensive home that didn't at all come from your work or what you sold, right? So we all have been on the like kind of seeing behind the scenes sometimes of people that put out content that make you think, oh, this person's uber successful. And then I think actually I've been on people's podcasts where they've talked about this. Like this was kind of their premise of like they lived these extravagant lives and then they had to file for bankruptcy. But everybody around them thought, oh, they're so good at sales. Look at them. They're just crushing it. Not true. You don't have to put on airs to be successful at sales. I truly believe what you have to do is be yourself. Let your awkwardness shine through, whatever you think is your awkwardness. Chances are it's probably going to be incredibly charming and inviting to the other person. Because I truly think that being successful at sales is learning how to hone your skills. It's about practicing, putting yourself in different conversations with people so that you get the experience of like, ooh, I know what to do here, or I know what to say here. And also that comes from having failures and also from successes too. But having failures is where I think you're going to really learn how to hone your selling strategies, is the things that didn't work. So you can go, okay, next time, here's what I'm going to do different. Here's what I'm going to do better. Which I'm going to leave you today with, you've probably heard me say this. I know my people in the Sales Maven Society hear this a lot, is my favorite quote, "Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape." If you're feeling like an imposter in sales, it's probably because you think there's only one way to be successful at sales, and there isn't. There's a myriad of ways, and you're perfect, and it's just learning how to find the strategy that works for you so that you can be you and attract your ideal clients. All right. We're going to wrap up the show with the year of connection. So I want to share a connection with you. Now, I've probably talked about her many times on the podcast, but I want to give a shout out to my good friend and somebody I admire so greatly, Melina Palmer. She is the founder and CEO of the Brainy business, which provides behavioral economics consulting to businesses of all sizes from around the world. And her podcast, The Brainy Business, has downloads in over 160 countries, I think over 500,000 downloads. She has written a book that's called What Your Customer Wants and Can't Tell You. And she has a second book coming out, which is why I wanted to do a shout out and share my connection for you to connect with her, because her second book that's coming out very soon, it may be out actually when you listen to this podcast, is What Your Employees Need and Can't Tell You. So if you have a team, you're going to want to read it. I got to read a very early copy of it. It's so good. It's so, so good. Her other book is amazing too. So I recommend them. And you can connect with Melina. You can check out her website by going to thebrainybusiness.com. And I encourage you to listen to her podcast. I love her podcast. I love her solo episodes. She gets some amazing guests that come on that talk about behavioral economics. And, but her solo episodes are some of my favorite. I call her my smarty pants friend. She's so stinking smart. And one of her superpowers is being able to take the most complicated research and distill it and deliver it in a way that is so user-friendly. It's so easy for the common person, me, to understand. And I just think she's really brilliant. So I want to share her as a connection. If you haven't connected with her yet, you'll be so glad. You'll be so glad to find her and have a little Melina in your life, a little Brainy business in your life. So check her out. And then if you are feeling like you want some support, if this episode in particular resonated with you today, of this idea of you got to be a certain way, and you're ready to let go of some of these beliefs, and you're ready to start learning how to show up and be your authentic self and have some strategy, then you are invited to come join the Sales Maven Society, because this is absolutely a place where you can be your imperfectly perfect self. That's what this group is about. It's about being vulnerable. It's about sharing your challenges. It's about having some, guide I'll be your guide. I'll offer you some suggestions and feedback and ways to help you overcome any of the challenges that you face in your business in regards to sales. You can join the Sales Maven Society by going to salesmavensociety.com. This is a monthly coaching program. There's no long-term commitment. You can come for a month, get what you want and leave, or you can come and hang out and stay and be a part of it. You get access to my training content. You get access to me twice a month in live coaching calls. And you can join right now for a special offer if you enter the coupon code 47trial. When you go to salesmavensociety.com, it's going to take $100 off your first month of membership. We would love to have you come hang out with us. And here, I'm going to leave you with a challenge because we did this as a challenge. I talked about at the very beginning, what prompted this episode today was a challenge. And that was for somebody to be vulnerable and share how this belief about feeling like an imposter because you think sales comes easy to everybody else but you. If you're willing to share, I would love to hear from you. You can send this to me privately. You don't have to announce it to the world, but if you want to announce it to the world and tag me on social media, I tend to hang out on Instagram and on LinkedIn. I would love to hear how this belief has been limiting you in your business and how you're ready to let go of it and embrace who you truly are and show up in the world and let the world see you for who you are. And or send it to me privately if that feels easier, if that feels better. I still think that's a pretty vulnerable thing to do. And you can always reach me at Nikki@yoursalesmaven.com. I would love to hear from you. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.